the TTFA's treasonous assault on Trinidad and Tobago's cultural heritage, a editorial by Professor Wall Street. When PhDs in dotishology attempt cultural genocide, the Trinidad and Tobago Football Association's relentless campaign to destroy the iconic Soca Warriors brand represents nothing short of cultural treason against the people of Trinidad and Tobago. Their determined effort to strip away a name that has become synonymous with our national identity, our musical heritage, and our sporting pride reveals an organization so thoroughly infected with what can only be described as PhDs in dotishology, danceology, stupidology, and methodology that they cannot recognize they are committing cultural vandalism of the highest order. For over 26 years, Selwyn Melville has fought to protect what rightfully belongs not just to him, but to every citizen of Trinidad and Tobago who has ever felt their hearts swell with pride when hearing Soca Warriors echo through stadiums worldwide. The Intellectual Property Office of Trinidad and Tobago has recognized his intellectual property rights, yet the TTFA continues this destructive crusade with the determination of cultural vandals hell-bent on erasing our heritage for their own mercenary interests. The late, great Black Stallion sang, "Black man don't get nothing easy," and nowhere is this truth more evident than in the TTFA's shameful treatment of Melville. One cannot help but wonder if the Soca Warriors trademark were owned by one of Trinidad and Tobago's 1% elite, would the TTFA dare treat them with such contempt? The answer is as obvious as it is damning. They would not dare. Here are 10 reasons why the TTFA is committing treason against the people of Trinidad and Tobago. 1. Cultural genocide through trademark terrorism. The TTFA's attempt to abandon the Soca Warriors name represents cultural genocide, the deliberate destruction of our national sporting identity that has been built over decades. They are not just changing a name, they are attempting to erase a piece of our cultural DNA that connects our football to our music, our heritage, and our global identity. This is treason against our cultural sovereignty. 2. The 1% double standard, institutional racism in action. The TTFA's treatment of Selwyn Melville exposes the ugly truth of institutional discrimination. If a wealthy, well-connected member of Trinidad and Tobago's elite owned the Soca Warriors trademark, the TTFA would have negotiated respectfully and fairly. Instead, they have spent 26 years trying to steamroll a black man who dared to protect his intellectual property. This is not just legal bullying, it's systemic racism disguised as bureaucratic incompetence. 3. PhDs in dotishology, the trademark infringement circus. The TTFA's suggested replacement names, Calypso Warriors, Soca Kings, Soca Gladiators, Trini Warriors, Soca Invaders, Trinbago Warriors, and Kaizo Boys Warriors all infringe on Melville's trademark. This level of legal illiteracy suggests the TTFA leadership holds advanced degrees in dotishology. Any first-year law student could see these names violate existing intellectual property rights, yet the TTFA persists with the stubborn ignorance of the willfully stupid. 4. The David versus Goliath betrayal. The TTFA has positioned itself as Goliath against Melville's David, using institutional power to crush an individual defending his legitimate rights. This betrays everything Trinidad and Tobago stands for: our tradition of supporting the underdog, defending the small man, and fighting institutional oppression. The TTFA has become the oppressor, committing treason against our national values. 5. Economic treason, destroying our World Cup legacy. With the 2026 World Cup approaching and potential qualification on the horizon, the Soca Warriors brand could generate billions in merchandise, streaming, music collaborations, and fan culture revenue. The TTFA's destruction of this brand constitutes economic treason, deliberately sabotaging our nation's commercial potential to satisfy their institutional ego and avoid paying fair compensation to a rightful owner. 6. We don't have no money, but we want that. Institutional thuggery. The TTFA's negotiating position, demanding rights they don't own while claiming poverty, represents institutional thuggery. They made millions during World Cup campaigns without paying Millville a cent, yet now claim they cannot afford fair compensation. This is the logic of thieves. We've been stealing from you for years, so we're too poor to pay you back. It's economic treason disguised as financial hardship. 7. The erasure of musical heritage. Soca Warriors connects our football team to our musical identity. Soca music is our cultural export to the world. By destroying this connection, the TTFA commits treason against our musical heritage. They are severing the link between our sporting and cultural identity, turning our team into a generic entity stripped of its Trinbagonian soul. 8. 26 years of institutional bullying. For over a quarter century, the TTFA has waged war against one man's legitimate rights. This isn't negotiation, it's institutional bullying designed to exhaust Melville's resources and break his will. They have turned our football association into a weapon of harassment against a citizen exercising his legal rights. This sustained assault on an individual's property rights constitutes treason against the rule of law. 9. The FIFA collaboration, selling out national sovereignty. The TTFA's apparent collaboration with FIFA to rebrand the team for commercial control represents the worst kind of colonial mentality, selling out our cultural sovereignty to foreign interests. They are willing to destroy our national identity to curry favor with international football bureaucrats who see our culture as a commodity to be controlled and monetized by outsiders. 10. Betraying the fans and the nation. Every Trinidad and Tobago citizen who has ever cheered for the Soca Warriors has been betrayed by the TTFA's actions. They are destroying something that belongs to all of us, our collective pride, our shared identity, our cultural connection to our team. This is treason against the emotional investment of an entire nation that has supported these players through triumph and heartbreak under the Soca Warriors banner. The PhD in stupidology, academic excellence in institutional failure. The TTFA's handling of this situation suggests their leadership has achieved unprecedented academic distinction in the field of institutional stupidity. Their doctorate-level expertise in dotishology is evident in their legal strategy, suggesting replacement names that obviously infringe on existing trademarks. Their advanced degree in doxology shines through their negotiating approach, demanding something they don't own while claiming they can't afford to pay for it. Their mastery of stupidology is demonstrated by their willingness to destroy a globally recognized brand worth potentially billions for the sake of avoiding fair compensation to its rightful owner. And their PhD in methodology is evident in their apparent belief that they can win public support while simultaneously betraying the cultural heritage of the very people whose support they need.
The black man don't get nothing easy reality. Black Starlin's immortal words ring with prophetic truth in Melville's struggle. Had he been a wealthy 1% Trinidadian businessman or a well-connected Trinidadian elite, the TTFA would have settled this matter decades ago with appropriate respect and fair compensation. Instead, they have subjected him to 26 years of legal warfare, hoping to outlast his resources and break his spirit.
This is the ugly reality of how institutional power treats ordinary citizens who dare to assert their rights. The TTFA's message is clear. If you're not part of the 1%, we will crush you regardless of the law, regardless of justice, and regardless of the cultural damage we inflict on our own nation.
The 2026 World Cup billion-dollar stakes. The approaching 2026 World Cup makes the TTFA's cultural vandalism even more treasonous. The Sosa Warriors brand, with proper management and marketing, could generate unprecedented revenue through
merchandise sales to global fans who recognize and love the name, music collaborations that blend football and soca culture, streaming content that tells our unique cultural story,
tourism revenue from fans attracted to our musical football identity, brand partnerships with companies wanting to associate with authentic Caribbean culture.
The TTFA is willing to destroy all of this potential wealth for our nation rather than pay fair compensation to the man who owns the rights. This is economic treason of the highest order. The Goliath complex, when institutions become oppressors.
The TTFA has transformed from a sporting organization into an oppressive institution that crushes individual rights under the weight of bureaucratic power. They have forgotten that they exist to serve the people of Trinidad and Tobago, not to enrich themselves at the expense of our cultural heritage and individual citizens' rights. Selwyn Melville represents every ordinary Trinbagonian who has ever been bullied by institutional power. His fight is our fight. His victory would be our victory. His defeat would signal that ordinary citizens have no protection against institutional tyranny in Trinidad and Tobago. The fair market value reality.
Melville hasn't pulled his compensation demands out of a hat. He's asking for fair market value for a brand that has generated millions in revenue over decades, while he received nothing. The TTFA made substantial money during World Cup campaigns, money that should have included royalties to the trademark owner. Instead of acknowledging this debt and negotiating fairly, they have chosen the path of cultural destruction. 1 million TT dollars cannot compensate a man for 26 years of struggle, determination, financial sacrifice, and reputational damage. The TTFA's suggestion that this amount represents fair compensation reveals their contempt not just for Melville, but for the very concept of intellectual property rights and fair dealing. The cultural heritage imperative. The Soca Warriors name is not just Melville's property, it's our cultural heritage. It represents the unique fusion of sport and music that defines Trinidad and Tobago's approach to football. It connects us to our carnival traditions, our musical innovations, and our cultural exports to the world. The TTFA's destruction of this connection represents cultural treason because they are severing our team from our identity. They are turning the Soca Warriors into a generic football team, stripped of its cultural meaning and reduced to a corporate commodity controlled by foreign interests. The resistance imperative.
The time has come for all patriotic citizens of Trinidad and Tobago to resist the TTFA's cultural vandalism. We must rally behind Selwyn Melville as our representative in this fight for cultural sovereignty. Demand government intervention to protect our national cultural assets. Mobilize international support from Caribbean diaspora communities worldwide. Engage artists and cultural leaders to defend our musical football heritage. Launch social media campaigns, #SaveSoccerWarriors, to expose the TTFA's treasonous actions. Boycott TTFA initiatives until they negotiate fairly with Melville.
Document this struggle as part of our ongoing fight against institutional oppression. In conclusion, the treason trial of Trinidad and Tobago football. The TTFA stands accused of treason against the people of Trinidad and Tobago. They have attempted to destroy our cultural heritage for personal gain, discriminated against the black man defending his legal rights, wasted our potential World Cup revenue through institutional stupidity, betrayed the trust of fans who love the Soca Warriors identity, collaborated with foreign interests against our national sovereignty, turned our football association into a weapon against our own citizens. Their PhDs in dotishology, danceology, stupidology, and methodology have equipped them perfectly for this assault on our national character. But they have underestimated the spirit of Trinidad and Tobago, the same spirit that created soca music, that built the steel pan, that gave the world carnival, and that produced the Soca Warriors. Selwyn Melville is not just fighting for his trademark, he's fighting for all of us. He represents every ordinary citizen who has ever been bullied by institutional power, every creative person whose work has been stolen by bureaucrats, every black man who has had to fight twice as hard for half the recognition. The TTFA's treason against our cultural heritage must not stand. The Soca Warriors must remain the Soca Warriors, and Selwyn Melville must receive the fair compensation and respect he has earned through 26 years of struggle against institutional oppression. The choice is clear. We can stand with Melville and our cultural heritage, or we can watch the TTFA complete their treasonous destruction of everything that makes our football team uniquely, authentically, proudly Trinbagonian. We choose to stand. We choose to fight. We choose to save the Soca Warriors from the PhD holders in institutional stupidity who would destroy our culture for their own mercenary interests. The battle for our soul has begun, and like our ancestors who fought against colonialism, exploitation, and cultural oppression, we will not surrender without a fight.